26, 2024 Eugene City Council meeting. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Anyone wishing to the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the city's public webcast and meeting materials webpage. Tonight's meeting will include a public comment period and 2 public hearings. For those wishing to speak, please fill out a request to speak form available on the city's public webcast and meeting materials webpage or at the entrance to this room, if you haven't already done so. These request to speak forms will be used to generate the order of speakers and correctly enter the speakers' names into the public record. Please note that members of the public who sign up for the public hearings may speak only on the topic that is the subject of the stated hearing, and will accept requests to speak forms until 7:35. For those who are joining the public hearings by phone and are unable to complete the request to speak form online, you can press *9 and the last 3 digits of your phone number will be added to the speaker's queue. For those of you who are joining the public comment period remotely, you're welcome to email your comments to City Council. And as a reminder for everyone here in the room, the rules of conduct, we don't want any signs, flags, loud or disruptive noise, anything that would sort of disrupt the smooth flow of business. And also we are aiming to create a safe space so that everyone can freely and safely express their opinions. And so we ask you to be a respectful audience. You're always welcome to wiggle your fingers in silent support. And then again, if you're not feeling well, we encourage you to watch this from home or wear a mask, as I see. And we have masks in the back if you want to protect yourself. And so with that, I call the February 26, 2024 meeting of the Eugene City Council to order, and I will begin with a land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. This land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and of honoring Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilahi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. And now we're ready for the first item on our agenda, which is committee reports and items of interest. Are there councilors who have something to report? Councilor Groves?
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, Councilor Keating and I had a chance to attend a meeting at UA Local 290 to speak with our U.S. Secretary of Labor, or Interim Secretary of Labor, Julie Su, and talk about internships and apprenticeships. And it was a very informative meeting. Our state representative, Congresswoman Val Hoyle, was there as well as many elected officials to learn more about this. I'll call it an alternative plan A for high school students to have access to very good jobs. We certainly need skilled labor in our society. And I was quite gratified to hear some of the work being done to that end. So I just wanted to call that out, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Keating.
Thank you. Similarly, Mayor, I want to give Congresswoman Hoyle a shout out, our former state representative and current member of Congress. It was a powerful duo as the interim labor secretary, Julie Su, former labor commissioner of California, alongside Val, Congresswoman Hoyle, former labor commissioner from Oregon. A great event, packed house at 290. the training center in Springfield, a whole host of local labor leaders from around the region. I appreciate attending alongside Councillor Groves, and the conversations that I had revolved around community benefits agreements, project labor agreements, key labor provisions, apprenticeships, of course, as Councillor Groves alluded to, and protecting fundamental worker rights. Speaking of workers' rights, I was proud to stand with Mayor Venice in solidarity of the home health care nurses on Friday night at River Bend. And at that candlelight vigil solidarity event, I thanked nurses of all stripes, especially the home healthcare workers, for their service and their sacrifice. And I announced something very personal to me, Mayor, that I would like to share with our colleagues and staff and community members alike. On Friday, my mom, who's been battling, I hope mom often listens in on these, so mom, don't get embarrassed if you're watching this right now. But mom received great news from her oncologist. She's been battling cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, and she's been kicking cancer to the curb. And her last round of chemotherapy is on Friday, March 15th. Holy cow, Mayor. So for everyone who said a prayer and kept mom in your thoughts and or been helping out whatever way you can and helping your loved ones going through something similar, I thank you. And hopefully we see a cure in our lifetime so families don't have to go through what our family has been going through. So good job, Mom.
All right. Thank you for that. We're very glad to hear she's in the recovery mode now after all those treatments. Any other comments from counselors? I'll just tag on to this that the Congresswoman Hoyle has been busy last week while she was in town, and I also attended a meeting that she convened, a roundtable with cities and utilities, sort of a debrief on the ice storm and the needs. And I'll just share this one takeaway. I mean, first of all, it's fascinating to hear and distressing to hear, particularly some of the smaller utilities, how devastating the cost is from the ice storm. But one of the interesting facts about FEMA is that FEMA is not really designed for these. It's designed for kind of singular, infrequent, large events. And what we are having instead is these very localized disasters all across the country, and FEMA is not really set up for that. So the Congresswoman is actually convening these roundtables to understand more what we need locally, but also to sort of build that case for that FEMA actually needs to sort of rethink how they function and how they respond to these. So very, very interesting work and important work that has a lot of impact here, because there are tremendous financial needs as a result of that ice storm. So it was good to hear and be part of the roundtable. Okay, with that, let's do a consent calendar.
Thanks, Mayor. I move to approve items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is unanimous. Thank you. And then we'll move on to our first action item, an ordinance extending the sunset date of the safe parking and safe tent sites ordinance. And I think I'll just go ahead and have you put a motion on the table. I don't know, do we need to go through an explanation of this?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance extending the sunset date of ordinance number 20672, temporary establishment of safe parking and safe tent sites that are larger than allowed under section 4.816 of the Eugene Code 1971.
Second.
Questions or comments? Councillor Clark and Councillor Semple.
I understand that this is a sunset date that we're addressing, Manager, but we just had a meeting where we talked about budgetary impacts and some of the service levels involved in this particular area category. I'm not even exactly sure how to ask this question, but I mean, I want to analyze for, is it a good idea to just extend this without understanding what the cost implications are and our budgetary capacity? So I'm not even sure what the question is, other than I suppose I'll just comment. That's hard for me to just extend openly without understanding those implications or having information about what it means and whether or not, and choices about whether or not that's the wisest way for us to be addressing the horrible issue of homelessness in our community. So.
I think manager, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of bullet points I would have said. So one of those is, so our existing ordinance sunsets on June 30th, 2024. So this June, the proposed extension is 12 months to next June. That extension that we're requiring is actually needed in order to utilize additional one-time dollars we receive from the state. So it's just an extension to the point at which we won't have funding available. And you will need to have a conversation and a policy decision about all of these items that have one-time dollars, how you want to move forward after those one-time dollars run out.
Okay. All right, Councilor Semple.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really, really happy about these two facilities that we have, and it's critical. We've done all this infrastructure work to keep them open. And since we have funding for another year, this makes total sense. But I just want to say that I'm so grateful to the city, the state, the feds. However, we're able to support these critical shelter beds. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, I can't seem to find it right now, but one of the tables in the chart was about the percentage of people that went onto housing from these different facilities that we have. And if you were to ask me what percent a couple of years ago, I would have said, I don't know, 2-3%, but it's on page 19. On the 410 Garfield, 24% went on to be housed. Campbell Chase Common, 23. Everyone Village, 46%, and the Rosa system, which is now Opportunity Village Part 2, 30%. Average of like 25% of people go through these facilities and get into permanent housing, which is exactly what we're trying to do. And those numbers are really high, comparatively speaking, to other communities, and also just really high comparative to the alternative, which is really nothing, with very little services to be able to get people into housing. So hats off to the folks that are doing this, because it's actually working to do what we're trying to do. Problem is, we just don't have enough of these.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that, pointing that out. Councilor Groves.
I just wanted to say, I'm concerned about the cost as well, but at the same time, the alternative is pushing people back out on the streets, which is a problem for them. And it's a problem for our residents and our businesses. When I took office, we had businesses leaving West Eugene just because of all the problems that were out there, not to mention the state of humans existing in squalor and being subjected to criminal activity constantly. So I don't know what the alternative is other than to continue down this path, but it is encouraging. And I go out and visit every one village, which is in my ward frequently, and to watch the changes that are made in these people that are able to be lifted up and become productive members of our community is actually quite impressive. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you. Thank you all for speaking to it. So if there are no other comments, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we're ready for our next item, a public hearing and possible action and ordinance concerning state traffic laws. And I will turn to the city manager to introduce this.
Thank you so much. Hold on one second. So the Oregon Vehicle Code is incorporated by reference in the city code. When the state legislature makes changes to the Oregon Vehicle Code, we need to readopt the incorporation by reference in the code to capture the legislature's changes. This is an ordinance to readopt the Oregon Vehicle Code to include changes made by the state legislature since our last update in 2020.
Okay. I now open the public hearing and we'll turn to Cherish to share the list.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no speakers for the first public hearing.
Okay, so we get to skip all the way down to the bottom of the script in that case. I will now close the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from council about this item? Okay. Staff are requesting that the council consider taking action on this item tonight. The city charter outlines that with unanimous consent, the council may consider and enact an ordinance at a single meeting. Does any councilor object to taking action on this ordinance tonight? Okay, I'm seeing no objections. And so with that, I'll ask the council president to put a motion forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to adopt an ordinance concerning state traffic laws, amending section 5.005 of the Eugene Code 1971 and providing an immediate effective date.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That passes unanimously as it needs to. Thank you.
Travis.
All right, thank you. With that, we're ready for the next item, public hearing and possible action, an ordinance providing for withdrawal of annexed properties from special districts. And again, I'll turn to the city manager.
Purpose of this public hearing is to hear any comments on the proposed withdrawal of annexed properties from special service districts. These withdrawals come before the council on an annual basis. The 2024 batch contains 8 annexations approved by city council in 2023 for a total of 8 tax lots. The city council is also scheduled to take possible action on this request for the annual withdrawal of previously annexed properties from special districts.
Okay, thank you. I now open the public hearing and turn to see, are there any speakers?
There are no speakers for this public hearing, Mayor.
Okay, so that makes that very quick. So I now close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from councils on this topic? Once again, staff are requesting that council consider taking action on this item tonight. The city charter outlines that with unanimous consent, the council may consider and enact an ordinance at a single meeting. Does any councilor object to taking action on this ordinance tonight? Okay, I am seeing none. And seeing that we have unanimous consent to take action on this ordinance, I will turn to the council president to put a motion on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve the ordinance providing for the withdrawal of annexed properties included as attachment A to this AIS.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have unanimous. Thank you very much. That is done. And so with that, thank you all for your patience. We are ready for the public comment period, which is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the city council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official. And again, I'll turn to Cherish to share the list of speakers who signed up by 7:30.
We have 16 speakers signed up for public comment this evening. I will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. When you are called to speak, please state your name and your ward or neighborhood, if known, before beginning your comments. If you are announced as the next speaker, please move to the seat in the front row designated for the next speaker. When it is your turn, you may come to the podium. Please leave any bags you may have with you at your seat. If you have documents to give council, please place them in the basket near the podium. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2.5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. Please note that use of profanity is prohibited, and any instances of profanity will result in immediate termination of speaking privileges. Our first speaker this evening is Kay Rose, followed by Janet Harris.
Hi, Council and Mayor. I'm Kay Rose. I live in the Fairmont neighborhood, Ward 3. I'm here to talk about Franklin Boulevard. I'm on the Fairmont board who doesn't want to take a stance on the issue, but in my workings and in the last year, I have had an overwhelming amount of neighbors that are very opposed to the roundabouts and very opposed to the way that it's been handled, feeling like they gave public input and it hasn't been taken seriously. You're taking one of 2 major arterial roads from the east, the west side of town, and you're turning it into a route best suited for everything but cars. There's only one other alternative, the Beltline. Just like Agate and the 2 crosswalk signals on Franklin, cars will be trying to avoid students crossing, staring at cell phones. This will not be safer for bikes who will have to use either the crosswalks or jump into multiple lane roundabouts, not as safe as a single lane roundabout, which have blind spots when cars change lanes. There's a lot of studies been done that are not showing them safer in multi-lane roundabouts. And with EMX and trucks driving back and forth, it's It's like a roundabout on steroids. It's like nothing of roundabouts that I've seen in other towns. If bike lanes were so important, why do we develop huge 12-story buildings right up to the street without room for a roundabout or room for bike lanes in front of them? EMX LTD is not a favor of roundabouts. They like straight lines. They don't have a commitment leading to extending bus service into our neighborhoods. The biggest concern we have is the neighborhood traffic that's going to be avoiding all the congestion and probably looping up Walnut onto Fairmont Boulevard, dropping down where I live on Columbia. We're seeing more and more of this going on. You're pushing climate into our neighborhoods. I mean, carbon, it's not very friendly. The trees, the historic median trees, we're being told they're all going to be taken down from like I-5. These are trees that store carbon without any room to replant the trees. Trees that should have required a vote, but now we hear there's a loophole to allow the taking down of these historic trees. Emergency vehicles do not like roundabouts. Hospitals are now all in Springfield, and it's going to slow down people getting to them. The EMX vehicles and fire vehicles are not as effective using roundabouts. The biggest thing
Thank you, Kay. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Janet Harris, followed by Otto Poticha.
Hi. Good evening, Council. I don't have any notes. I'm just a resident in the neighborhood. I live in the Fairmont neighborhood. I'm Ward 3. And having seen the design, I'm trying to figure out what it is, the solution, what problem it is it's trying to solve. And towards that end, what it is that you want Franklin Boulevard to be. Is it the grand entrance to our city? Is it a thoroughfare? Is it a neighborhood street? Is it a bypass? Is it, I don't know. And the design with the roundabouts doesn't seem to address that. The roundabouts also seem to be very hostile to both cars and pedestrians. I don't know how pedestrians get across an intersection like that, or you don't see it in Springfield when they put those in. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that that if one of the issues is automobile traffic and congestion, which I frequent that street every day, I don't see that. But if that's an issue, one solution would be for LTD to restore a Fairmont bus route that goes up the hill. There's currently no route that goes up the hill, and there's no sidewalks either. And so if you want to encourage public transportation, I would suggest a new bus route. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Our next speaker is Otto Poticha, followed by Charles Fetzer.
Otto Poticha, I'm in the Zelenka ward. I want to support the Franklin Boulevard transformation and concept development. This is an incredibly important project for our city. The present scheme, however, is typical public works engineering and not design. It is engineering. Have any of the special nature or special experiences within a quarter been incorporated? One's experience and the special qualities of being in this major urban space, even in a vehicle, have not been explored nor presented. This public works engineered solution could be dropped into any city and probably has. Engineering is an essential ingredient in any design, but tends to be quantitative or measurable. A design must pair the experiences of being and using the space to be a design. The presented design narrative has a paragraph that's called placemaking. All the words are there. The words are incredible. That's absolutely what ought to be in this design. None of it is there. These are simply words out of a catalog somewhere. We're asking what are the principles or the process to finally incorporate human beings into this engineered solution. Most of our streets, 40% of the open space we own as the public. They're called streets, corridors, parks. We don't care for them. We only engineer them. I've made a list of questions that I would like answered. They can't be answered tonight. I did print this and I'll leave a copy here. But how is this a major introduction statement and entrance to our city? How can Judkins Point and other adjacent elements play a role as a part of this entrance? Should this corridor still use the term boulevard? Understanding the definition of that term, it takes more than landscaping or plant masking to be a boulevard. Boulevards are like parks or park-like corridors and should be a special place. A place one wants to occupy and.
Thank you, Otto. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Charles Fetzer, followed by Alice Strong.
My name for the record is Fraser, Frazer. Probably my handwriting that gave the trouble. Why would a city knowingly adopt a traffic plan that cuts off an active and growing community of 600 households from its only nearby grocery store, post office, and pharmacy? I'm from Laurel Hill Valley on the east side of the U of O, and that's the question I now ask the city council. Since 2019, when the first Franklin improvement design was revealed, my wife and I, along with other neighbors, pointed out that the transportation department plan resulted in isolating our community from essential services. By eliminating the current left turn on from Franklin onto Orchard Street, the plan makes it difficult and more hazardous for our residents to reach both Market of Choice and Hiron's on Franklin, as well as restaurants and businesses on the south side of the street. The current traffic signal allows us to safely cross Franklin and directly enter the parking lot for those businesses. According to the traffic planner, in the future, we'll be required either to divert for several blocks through the Franklin neighborhood or make a U-turn at the intersection in front of Matt Knight Arena and obtain access by going back in the other direction. Does this sound like a practical, safe, sensible traffic plan for a large neighborhood to reach everyday destinations? When we pointed out this design problem nearly 5 years ago, we were simply ignored. More recently, the planner told me that preserving our neighborhood access was not a design priority for this project. Last week, in a presentation to Laurel Hill Valley Neighborhood Association, he used a slide listing the elimination of the left turn at Orchard Street as a main objective for the Franklin Improvement Project. When asked why, he avoided the question. So I asked the City Council, how can a project of this magnitude be proposed when it has such obvious negative effects for so many people? And how can it proceed without a public hearing?
Thank you, Charles. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Alice Strong, followed by Sue Crosby. Alice Strong in the room? Okay. Are you Alice?
No, Sue.
Okay, our next speaker is Sue Crosby, followed by John Hirons.
Sue Crosby, Good Pasture Neighborhood, native Eugenian. The city of Eugene refers constantly to public input and comments. Since the open house in February of 2023, I have asked to see the public comments. Forms were handed out and collected, and I asked that night when we could get to see them. No one on the staff that night could answer that question. No emails sent to the mayor and councilors got a response. I was told by one city councilor that you are required to have public input, but not required to publicly share it. This seems very disingenuous. This public input is referred to constantly, and I quote, after 5 years and thousands of community suggestions, the design concept has been decided. So who did actually see all this community feedback? The project simulation, in my opinion, is a joke. It has very light traffic. If you've driven or walked or biked on Franklin Boulevard, it has a lot more going on than that little cartoon represents. There is much more traffic and many more different kinds of comments I have seen by engineers do not feel this concept is a good or safe design. In the city's statistics from 2017 to 2021, it has a big number, 94 crashes, several resulted in death. How many? One is too many, but it seems this would be big news and the community should hear more about it, and the locations and dangers should be public information. If this is largely due to speeding vehicles, and that is quoting the city, the solution would seem to be simple. It could be easily implemented by reducing the speed to 25 miles an hour and save all the construction hassles and disruptions like we saw for years on 6th, 7th, and West 11th, and save all the taxpayers a lot of money. Roundabouts are not a common and safe way to move traffic and pedestrians on the West Coast. Look at the 2 roundabouts by the bridge in Glenwood. Confused drivers and horns are frequent, and again, with a lot less pedestrian traffic. It seems that a few 25-mile-an-hour signs and EPD writing some tickets that cars would slow down. Please consider the signs and not the rest of this.
Thank you, Sue. Our next speaker this evening is John Hirons, followed by Kathleen Fraser.
Good evening. My name is John Hirons. We own, the family, Hirons family, owns the shopping center Market Choice in Hirons. I want to introduce to you these folks. This is Up Campus. They've contacted us for elimination of the shopping center and replacing it with a high-rise student housing. You can see it all. I'm going to keep this copy. The city has proposed on Franklin Boulevard to close Market of Choice, as you heard before, their access on the northeast corner, and eminent domain the property in front of Hirons, and add 2 roundabouts in the university area. If roundabouts are good, why are there not any roundabouts on West 11th? What did Track Power Sports over in Springfield, in Glenwood actually, say about roundabouts? They said, bring a bag of popcorn, bring your lawn chair, listen to the horn honking, see the road rage, and the victory signal from car to car. Their quote, quote unquote, people just don't know how to use roundabouts. Now, let's add 2 roundabouts as the city is proposing in the university area. You add 22,000 students to that, 5,600 faculty and staff, 1,142 beds at hotels and motels across the street, and 1,500 apartments on Garden Avenue. What does that give you? That transforms into pedestrians, bicycles, scooters, skateboards, and wheelchairs. Very unsafe situation. My comment is, and I shouldn't say this, but how many people do you plan to kill with roundabouts and an unsafe situation? Again, I'll say the same thing, quote unquote. People just don't know how to use roundabouts. And it was said before, what does Jameson Otten have to say about roundabouts? Let's talk surprises.
Thank you, John. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Kathleen Fraser, followed by Travis Thompson.
Good evening. I am not opposed to all roundabouts, but I am opposed to the 5 roundabouts planned for Franklin Boulevard. I believe they are unnecessary and will cause many more problems than they solve. I live in Laurel Hill Valley. It now takes me 5 minutes to get to Market of Choice or Hirons. If the reconstruction happens and the left turn at Orchard is eliminated, I will have to navigate 3 roundabouts and make a U-turn at Villard, the very busy intersection by the basketball arena. Are the 700 plus households from our neighborhood expected to do that? It makes no sense. I have collected hundreds of signatures from people who do not want 5 roundabouts on Franklin. Most responders were shocked and horrified that this is being considered. Truckers don't like it, LTD doesn't like it, drivers don't like it, emergency responders don't like it. Where is the evidence that this is a priority for the city? It appears that all the research supporting this plan is many years old. Where is the current research that tells how England is removing roundabouts and replacing them with signaled intersections because they are safer for bicycles? Why hasn't an underpass been considered? Why remove the mature oaks in the median? They make a beautiful entrance to our city from the east. When I asked about that, our city councilor said, and I quote, "I hate those trees." Our neighborhood is hilly, has no bus service, limited sidewalks, and many older adults or families with small children. So we depend on our cars to get into town. 5 roundabouts makes it complicated. Why here and not somewhere that has more traffic accidents? Research shows that roundabouts are not suitable for congested areas. Certainly taxpayer money could be spent on something more worthwhile. Please put an end to this ridiculous plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Our next speaker is Travis Thompson, followed by Alan McWayne.
My name is Travis Thompson, resident of Eugene, Oregon, live in the Hendricks Park area, side facing University of Oregon. Went to U of O, always dreamed of living in Hendricks Park, ran track at U of O. A few days ago, I experienced a home burglary. Thankfully, I had a Ring camera, but was away on work. I worked with 911 in real time to get cops on the scene as I saw a man burst down my front door. I was watching the robbery happen live as the cops came onto the scene. Since you can't see the video, he approached the door, swiftly pulls out a steel weapon and breaches my front door in a matter of seconds. If you think deadbolts and make you safe, they don't. He stole thousands of dollars of stuff inside. I was on the phone with 911 in real time as it was taking place. I contacted all my neighbors. There was a few newborns in the neighborhood that I was really nervous about. The cops came within 10 or 15 minutes with about 10 police officers, guns drawn, police canine, and they cleared my house. Over the past 2 years, I've contacted non-emergency police for multiple vans and RVs illegally parked in the Hendricks Park at night. I was told multiple times that the city had banned police from responding to these requests of overnight camping. At times, these vans looked suspicious at best. Some were on jacks, some left trash, etc. These people would camp directly under signs that said against city law and ordinance to camp overnight. And it was always shocking to me to see that. If each of you drove up tonight, you'd see the same. So here we are 2 years later with a home robbery, 10 cops at my door, guns drawn. I sleep with a pistol at my bed now. Thankfully, myself, a child, or a family member wasn't inside. This person who broke into my house, this wasn't their first rodeo, a lifelong criminal in Lane County. At some point, someone like him will be desperate enough, and the results won't be personal property. It could be loss of life. I'm pissed, disappointed, and outraged as a citizen of Eugene. The police did an amazing job responding and handling the situation, but I feel like our city has failed us. Each of our homes on the hill pays over $10,000 a year in property damage, so millions of dollars a year or not property damage, property taxes. So millions of dollars of property taxes are going to the city and county.
Thank you, Travis. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Alan McWayne, followed by Sarah Koski.
Hello, Council, Mayor Venus, and Manager Madari. And Councilor Keating, that's indeed hopeful news. Thanks for sharing that. Wayne, Ward 1. I'm trying to reduce the bond proposal to 7 concise points. The $100 million M Stadium still has a $43 million funding gap. Requests of $1.5 million and $7.5 million were rejected last year by the feds and state, although the state may vote again in March. The M's have announced an unverified $10 million addition, uncertain because of 3 years of misleading statements about their prepaid lease. Last Wednesday, you voted on a resolution that said, quote, ESG has expressed plans to achieve approximately $10 million in additional private funds. I'm skeptical about that. It is very vague. Now, if this $15 million city bond passes, that still leaves a $28 million shortage. Point number 2, county still has not committed to the stadium, which was rejected by its own consultants. The master plan and the further design have now been on hold since last year. They're awaiting direction and funding. point number 3, in January, the county board commented that this council should not move ahead with the bond while the stadium was so uncertain. And that's the opinion of all 5 commissioners. Number 4, the county administrator has yet to determine how much of the 2% increased visitor taxes can be used for a stadium which does not attract visitors. Another local government in our valley has been sued over this matter by travel groups. Number 5, last November, this council considered a bond package of $25 to $45 million for the stadium, Golden Gardens, and LCC pickleball. The latter 2 projects were removed as incomplete and still in development phase. But now the stadium, which you are considering, is also uncertain and complete. Number 6, city voters should not pay for an expensive and limited use baseball stadium built on county land to support a large private corporation. Finally, in December and again last.
Thank you, Alan. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Sarah Koski, followed by Thomas Bruno.
Hello, everyone. Sarah Koski. I am part of Ward 3, and I am here. I'm so excited. I got winded just walking up and down. I have this head cold and I have Sudafed and cough drops in. So I'm thinking this is my first time giving public comment, and my bar is set so low that the next time I come, I think that you might actually listen to me, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, this girl is ridiculous. So I'm a graduate of the University of Oregon, graduated in 2006, Pioneer Presidential Scholarship, which meant I had a full ride scholarship for academics. I was mentored and trained in philanthropy by President Dave Frohnmeyer, and went on to work here in town, while a lot of my peers left to go abroad or to work in government or politics. I actually stayed to do a lot of work with NGOs, disaster mitigation, all of that. Worked my way to a whole bunch of different organizations, DELISA, Volunteers in Medicine, all the way to running a nonprofit myself when COVID hit. And then I became chair of the COAD, the Lane County Community Organizations Active in Disaster. During that time, great minds like Jared Pruch of United Way, Heather Saliki, at that time with Everyone Village, we ran the first disaster activation for the unhoused, where we did a map of the town, distributed water and electrolytes twice a day, did wellness checks on folks. And at that time, according to emergency manager Patience Winningham, there was no loss of life during the heat dome in 2021, which was a significant accomplishment. Been very academic, extremely book smart. If you ask me if I have any street smarts, I'm dumb as a rock, right? But I know how to read a lot of books. And so from the work that we did with the COAD, I got placed on some gubernatorial task forces, doors opened, but I realized that my work really with the homeless was nothing without lived experience. So I became case manager of 410 Garfield, and my life forever changed. And I know that's a lot. I don't really know what I'm talking about other than I'm so excited to see you. And I really want to say that I just came to see everyone's vote tonight when it came to 310 and 410. And you guys really encouraged me. My life forever changed working with the homeless. It was my mission and my calling. And to see all of you with your hands, I just want to say thank you. So
Thank you, Sarah. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Thomas Bruno, followed by Eric Berglund.
I'm Thomas Bruno, 2716 Brackenford Road, Eugene, Oregon, Ward 3. My background as a combat arms officer, the Army sent me to get a master's degree in logistics. And after I was medically retired, I put that education to use. And so I've been a member of a Society of Logistics Engineers. I've done a lot of transportation algorithms. I've done a lot of queuing, and I've written textbooks and professional journals. I've asked my contemporaries about the 5 traffic roundabouts. They essentially said, this looks like a solution for a problem that is ill-defined. I'm really concerned about emergency vehicles. I've asked for all the data, the transportation analysis. I can run my models. I've got 12 software that does modeling. I'll be glad to do the independent verification and validation on the project. But I don't see the safety aspects that the city is talking about. Specifically, Zero Vision doesn't even list Franklin Boulevard as one of the issues. The major drawbacks of an increased heavy traffic is congestion. They've talked about tunnels, they've talked about everything. My son is a nephrologist in Davis, California. My daughter-in-law is a professor. They have no school buses in Davis. The kids go to school on their bicycles. My 16-year-old grandson went to elementary school half a mile away, a mile and a quarter for his middle school, and 2.5 miles away for his high school. I have an EV down there because I have a lung fungus, and I ride with him when we go to dinner. I'm very familiar with the transportation at Davis, California. Davis has 5 roundabouts in the entire city, and the city is asking for 4 roundabouts in 4/5 of a mile. I would recommend that the city manager.
Thank you, Thomas. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is Eric Berglund, followed by Rich Locke.
My name's Eric Berglund. I grew up in Laurel Hill Valley. My mom still lives there. And I moved back here recently from Seattle, Washington, where I did spend roughly 12 years doing route and public transportation planning for King County and the city of Seattle. I've seen a lot of transportation boondoggles in my life. This plan seems to be at least partially one of those. One of the things that I take issue with, and I'm going to parrot Mr. Bruno a little bit here, and that is that the city's own Zero Vision research does not list Franklin Boulevard anywhere near or in the top 15 most dangerous roadways in Eugene. And yet this project seems to be addressing a problem that doesn't exist. I would also like to say that when I think of emergency services along this corridor, especially given the fact that the emergency room at the university is now gone, the only place for, the eventual accidents that are bound to happen on this roadway will be to go obviously out to Peace Health in Springfield. What I see is a waiting sort of disaster or trap for patients who are injured along that roadway. I don't see a safe or quick way to get emergency vehicles from Franklin Boulevard to Peace Health. I think it's going to cost lives, and this is a poorly thought out project. That's what I have.
Thank you, Eric. Our next speaker is Rich Locke, followed by John Crowder.
Good evening, Rich Locke, Mid-Valley Metals. I own a business in Ward 8, and I'm the president of the Eugene Business Alliance. You folks that are fighting for that Franklin Boulevard, you might as well just kiss it goodbye, because we had 2 votes in front of this city for the Roosevelt Bypass Highway, and we got West 11th, and that's what I'm here to complain about. West 11th is nothing more than a trash pile. I know that Alan, thank you, Councilman Zelenka, you pointed out the success rate of our safe sleep sites, but that doesn't include the people that nobody wants, that are creating all of these little micro garbage piles everywhere, and our city doesn't care where they are as long as they're not on public land. They're in front of our businesses. They're in front of, on the street corners. There's been a gal squatting on the corner of West 11th and Bailey Hill for over a year now on one corner or the other. And do you think we could get her out of there? No. I just want to say that it's a shame. Every entrance point into this city is littered with garbage and homeless people that we cannot help because they don't qualify for services. My next topic that I want to talk about is jail space. I just went on the second tour to the jail. And I asked the right question this time. First, I asked, how many open beds are there? And they said 0. And then I asked another question. I says, how many beds are in your capacity that you're not utilizing? Oh, let me show you. He walks me down to a ward, and there's a 100-bed ward unoccupied. And yet the city of Eugene will not take the additional beds that they're offering there of as many, because they're staffed for 100 more people. We have 15 beds for 170,000 people, and we are refusing beds. We have crime ridden everywhere in West Eugene, especially along West 11th. I went for a tour on West 11th with Jameson.
Thank you, Rich. Your time is concluded. Our next speaker this evening is John Crowder, followed by Heather Kawas-Anza.
Well, Rich, maybe I should have continued.
Yeah, go for it, John.
John Crowder, Ward 7. Randy, you mentioned earlier, I do not know what the alternatives are, and I will admit, I don't know what the alternatives are either. I just get these little tidbits and I say to myself, kind of, well, what's going on? So, and I'll just follow what Rich said. Don't spend the money on Franklin Boulevard. Let's help the homeless. Let's try to clean up the city. I have 3 items, and I have an action plan for each one. River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan. I became aware of this because businesses on River Avenue were going to have tremendous restrictions and automobile. And I asked for the council, when making decisions, respect free enterprise, because that's what's going to make Eugene survive as a city. The second action plan is when you have the public hearing, it's supposed to be virtual. Why don't you let the public there? What are people afraid of when the county and city get together? The second item is the Lane County Fairgrounds. I went to the logging conference and I talked to a vendor there. 2 semi-loads of equipment came here. He did not have enough space that he requested to show that equipment. If you put a ballpark in the Lane County Fairgrounds, you're going to jeopardize the Oregon Logging Conference is one of the bright stars in the city. So my recommendation there is, if you're going to vote, it shouldn't be a city vote. It should be residents in both the county and the city. I don't know how you do that, but that's what should be done. The third item is I want to talk about the Pledge of Allegiance. So the last council meeting, when you had the public hearing, I talked to Mike Clark. I said, why don't you say the Pledge of Allegiance? I've been to 8 city council meetings in 5 different cities. Every one of them says the Pledge of Allegiance, and also a school board meeting. And he said, well, in 2011, there was a vote because one of the council members didn't want to be during the Pledge of Allegiance, and so you do it once a quarter. So you do the land acknowledgement, which takes 1 minute and 10 seconds. The Pledge of Allegiance will take you 12 seconds. So I asked the city council, why don't you honor the 2,213,205 people that gave their lives for the freedom of this country, and honor this country by saying the Pledge of Allegiance at every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our final speaker this evening is Heather Kawas-Anza.
Good evening. My name's Heather Kawas-Anza. Trying to figure out how to spell it phonetically is really difficult, so I apologize. Sorry. My name, again, Heather Kawas-Anza. I'm the Director of Philanthropy for Community Supported Shelters. We operate 14 throughout the city of Eugene, serving upwards of 200 folks every single year. Wanted to first of all say thank you for voting to extend the ordinance for the safe sleep sites and the tent and parking programs. We are part of the Rest Stop program. So while the ordinance is not directly impacting us per se, it really is because all of our shelter groups work together to support the unhoused in our community. It's not a one size fits all solution. It's something that really takes a lot of us trying all sorts of different methods to figure out how this is going to work best and where we can serve people best. I wanted to address the funding concern, which is something that is always at the top of our minds. If we don't have funding, we can't continue to operate. But I did want to point out that the National Alliance to End Homelessness indicates that a person experiencing chronic homelessness costs taxpayers upwards of $35,000 a year. That number is from actually 2016, so it's probably significantly higher. Compare that to what those of us in this industry are spending per bed, and our organization, Community Supported Shelters, averages under $8,000 per bed per year. So we support an individual for an entire year for under $8K, saving taxpayers lots of money. Really want to continue to urge you all to support alternative shelters, alternative parking programs, alternative methods of addressing this issue. This is something that's not going to go away. Having this ordinance extended through 2025 is fantastic, but this issue is not going to be solved in 2025. So really highly recommend thinking of ways that we can support the shelters across the board. It's not just congregate shelters, but non-congregate alternative shelters, figuring out ways that we can address this because this is impacting the community at large, not just those that are unhoused, but businesses, homes. This is something that we need to work together to address. So again, want to say thank you. And if anyone wants a tour to see what we're doing firsthand, highly recommend you give me a call. I know Councilor Sumple has been on a tour before. This is something we need to work together as a team to address. So wanted to thank you again. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Heather. Mayor, that was our final speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody who took time to speak today. To come and speak. Are there comments from councilors? Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone who took the time to be here tonight and speak. City Manager, do we have Franklin Boulevard coming to us at any point?
I'm looking back at Matt, sorry. Rich thinks I'm asking him to answer for you. I'm not sure if it's on the schedule, when it's on the schedule.
It's coming up on the schedule.
But it is coming up. We are going to have a chance to get information and weigh in on this, correct?
Council, Matt Rodriguez, Assistant City Manager. So it's not on the docket right now to come back to you. It's been going through a design process that started in 2019, as folks have talked about. Right now, the project is basically moved from concept design to design, with construction expected to be in 2026. So we can bring it back to present what the final concept was, where we are on the project, what's expected to be built with the RAISE grant that we received from the federal government in partnership with City of Springfield, because they have a portion of Franklin they're looking to reconstruct as well, if that's something that you'd like us to bring to you soon.
I personally would like that. I still have some questions on this, and I'm always concerned with emergency response.
Sure.
Next, I've got a few more things here.
Go for it.
If I may. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Crowder, River Avenue, there is a carve out now in the plan that will provides a business area. You know, there's not a lot of residents that want to establish between the sewage treatment plant and Beltline. And so that area is, I understand it, has become exempt from some of the rules being imposed under the River Road plan. We have that coming before us again as well. And I like your idea about adding the Pledge of Allegiance at our Monday night council meetings. That's near and dear to my heart. And then finally, the jail beds issue. I've asked our police chief about that, and he says he's been told that they can't activate those beds because of federal edict. And that's what the sheriff told me when I asked him on one of those tours I was on. But I would like to have that confirmed, because we need more space. Jail isn't the answer to everything, but it's part of our solution set. And we have inadequate capacity with what beds are open now. And I know from years ago, responding into the jail on various calls, that they had dorms and where a lot of those beds are, and they can't use them as dorms anymore. And my understanding from the sheriff is the engineering of the jail itself won't allow partition walls to be put in. And that's just what I've been told, but I would like to see if we can get that confirmed.
I can verify that. I'll share, the Lane County Jail is a Lane County facility. The city of Eugene actually pays an additional fee to essentially lease beds for city crimes, municipal crimes. If they had the capacity to open up the Lane County Jail, to open up all those beds, I think they would probably do that. We've asked, we've never been told we could. We pay over $1 million for 15 beds to hold municipal crimes. We also pay close to $1 million to the city of Springfield so we could get additional capacity. That's why I'm surprised as well. So we'll fact verify that.
I would appreciate that. And I would like to be able to let the public know what the facts are. I think that's what we're all trying to find out is what the facts are here. So I appreciate that. Again, thank you everyone for taking the time to be here. We do take these issues seriously. It's just that sometimes from when a problem is identified till it really gets to a point we actually can do something about it as a council, there's usually a time lag. And I know that can be very frustrating for people who are waiting for answers and things to be resolved. But thank you for bringing these issues up. And I'll just add, I've also visited the safe sleep sites as well. I've been to every one of them. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Other counselors with comments? Counselor Keating.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate the longing for the fact finding. Looking forward to hearing the facts. Heather and Sarah, thank you for your service to our most vulnerable community members. And thank you to all who are working with the community supported shelters. I look forward to doing a tour. I visit Nightingale pretty regularly in our neck of the woods in South Eugene. Nightingale, it's my understanding, boasts a 70% rehousing rate, which is phenomenal. So I applaud Councilor Zelenka mentioning the great facts or great data points earlier. But I look forward to doing a citywide tour with you. Thank you for the invitation. About 3 years ago or so, 2 or 3 years ago, I advocated for increased federal funding for Franklin Boulevard. I'm saddened and concerned that the plan has evolved or devolved to so many roundabouts in such a finite area. Research shows that roundabouts decrease fatalities, but they increase collisions. They decrease fatalities and increase collisions. Neighbors have informed me that there are plans for potential roundabout on 30th because of the grade. Yeah, I hear you, Councilor Clark. I'm with you. That's what I'm trying to say. I think there are other ways to embrace traffic calming that isn't a European model that we in the West just aren't trained to deal with. It will take a generation plus to get there when it comes to educating new drivers about roundabouts, the access to private enterprise, the tree preservation points, the expeditious access to emergency rooms in Springfield, the eminent domain. You know, I have grave concerns, and I appreciate the opportunity to glean more factual information and roll out a public hearing around the issue. I am cautious what I've seen happen in Springfield. Again, a decrease in fatalities, great, as we advance toward a Vision Zero model, but an increase in collisions. And the personal experience I've had coming through Glenwood to Franklin, and I've mentioned this to our traffic team, the harrowing experience that I have had dodging or with pedestrians, just walking wherever. Until we're at a point as a society where there's education about how to properly navigate roundabouts as a motorist, as a cyclist, and a pedestrian, I am cautious, and it gives me a significant amount of heartburn. I thank the residents for joining us tonight and sharing your views.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselors with comments? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight, share your thoughts, and with that, we are adjourned.